Hello to all of my friends and fans in India. I'm Keith Barry from Ireland, and I'll be joining magician Bharath on his YouTube channel Mallugic, where we'll be discussing all things magic, mentalism and hypnotism. See you there.
Hello Keith, how are you?
Yeah, great, thanks. Very nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So first of all, let me just say this. Thank you so much for accepting my request for doing this interview in my Mallugic. It's such an honor to have you on my channel. You know, you're the kind of a man who does everything for this industry. Like, you have done many magic shows, you have done many mentalism shows, you have done hypnotism, and guess what? You have taken that into the next level. Like, you did many television specials.
Yeah.
And after that, after doing many television special, and I think when I started learning magic on 2007, and on 2010, I saw on Discovery Channel of like your Deception with Keith Brady, which was wonderful. Like, you know, I got so much inspired by that. And then later, what happens is you got the coolest title in this world. You know, Chief Magic and Mentalism Consultant for Now You See Me Too. That sounds so incredible. That's so cool. So,
Yeah,
like, I think we have a lot to talk about. And if I'm going to talk about you as an introduction, this interview won't be enough because there is many things you have achieved in your career. So, with that said, let's start the session. So, basically, Keith, what's your philosophy about mentalism and magic?
You know, I have a very broad philosophy when it comes to mentalism and magic, because for me, I see myself as an all-round entertainer. And, you know, I started off being a magician, like every magician pretty much, when I was 5 years of age. And then when I was 14, I bought a book on hypnosis, a small pamphlet on hypnosis. It was called Practical Hypnotism. And that's when I started to work on hypnosis. And then when I was in college, I started to mix psychology with hypnosis, because my girlfriend then, who's my wife now, she studied psychology.
Wow.
And that's kind of the broad stroke of where I started to merge all of the different areas together. But I suppose unlike a lot of purists, I like to cross over all genres, because in Ireland, with the population that we have, you know, I've been full-time at this 20 years now, but because of the population, if I was to just be a mentalist or just be a hypnotist or just be a magician, I don't think I'd have the longevity that I've had here. I keep needing to change it in order to surprise them and have variety. Now, of course, I work internationally also, but for me, my philosophy is really about engaging people, motivating people, and giving them a performance whereby they just lose themselves for that moment in time, whatever that moment in time is. And I think really where I win, if you like, is truly on the live circuit here in Ireland. Like, I'm very privileged that every year I put on a big tour and I perform for minimum 500 people all the way up to 2,000 people a night. And, you know, I suppose garnered a reputation in the live industry here as being a go-to show. So for me, in that 2.5 hours, my shows are quite long, so it's 2.5 or 3 hours long. It's about just allowing people to enter into a world of escapism where anything can happen. And that can be mentalism, it can be escapology, it can be hypnotism, it can be whatever I choose it to be, because I love all of the genres and I love performing in all of those genres, you know.
And you know, this is the interesting thing, because there are like two statements which most of the great performers say. Some are like, you know, it is okay to be mixing genres in magic. I mean, it is okay to mix magic, mentalism, and hypnotism. And then some great performers say that, you know, see, if you're doing mentalism, you know, you have to be a full-time mentalist. And there are many great performers who say that don't mix magic and mentalism. So I'm not going into those, but I'm just going to ask you this. See, when we take a path in our future, like let's say if you're going to take a very important path in our life, we will have a feeling that, okay, if I'm going to take this path, this is the right path and I'm going to be successful. And then if you get that feeling, then we have to go and take that path, right? So were you so sure that you will be successful when you decided to mix genres?
You know, I'm never sure of success. I just follow my gut instinct. But what I do know, as somebody who puts a lot of deep thought into what I do, is a lot of the people in our industry, in our collective industry, who are talking online about, you've got to do it this way or you have to do it this way. A lot of those people are armchair mentalists. They're sitting at home and they're not working. Or they're armchair magicians. They're sitting at home and not working. I only ever want to be working. I'm hungry for work. I have to provide for my family and my kids, but I also love what I do. And I don't think there's any right way or wrong way. People can be very opinionated, but I can't tell you what your style is, and I can't tell you whether you should be a purist mentalist or a purist magician or mixed genres. I don't believe in the day and age that we're in that any one way is the right way. You have to find the right way for you. And that can be anything. It can be comedy mentalism. It can be bizarre, weird hypnotism. It can be anything. But I think there is an audience for everything. That's important. And I'm not somebody who's going to force my opinion on others. All I can do is talk from experience with what's worked for me. I choose, people don't understand this, I choose what projects to take year in, year out. So for example, one year I might do a hypnotism project. So for example, You're Back in the Room. I did 2 seasons in the UK. I did a season in Australia, a season in America. And then I thought, okay, that's somebody else's format. I want to go back to doing my own formats. So last year I chose to do 5 1 hours for RTE, which is our lead network here. And that was called the Keith Barry Experience. And I just had a phone call literally an hour ago about planning for the Keith Barry Experience number 2, which will be coming out next year again in Ireland. We just have to figure out when to film it, of course, because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I just choose projects when I want to choose them. And I don't say that from an egotistical standpoint. I say that from a perspective of when I decide I want to do something, then I don't allow anybody else's opinion to inhibit that or to affect that. So for me, I think people need to stop getting so precious about mentalism versus magic versus hypnotism. I think you need to be more precious about the art form, more precious about the secrets, because now on TikTok and everywhere else, people are just doing a trick and then learn the trick because it gets more followers. And is that the right way? I think probably not. I think in the long run, it'll probably have a detrimental effect. But again, these people aren't really working in the real world, and they're making their money from doing that online. So I understand it. But for me, I'm in a completely different, area of expertise. Like I perform in the live world, I perform on network televisions around the world. And yes, I do the social channels as well. And I do some magic and mentalism on those, but they're not my primary focus. My primary focus is performing live. And for now, it's performing obviously on Zoom. And then I do a lot of one-to-one mind coaching through Zoom as well, with bringing people to peak performance, But there is no right way. I think you have to find your own right way and then not allow any peers to affect that too much,
That's great. That's actually true, though. And also, I want to ask you about one thing, and I would like to know your thoughts about that, because as the YouTube and internet is exploding with lots of secrets, there are many, we are not going to talk about the methods or techniques in the mentalism, but let me be honest here. There are many techniques revealed on YouTube, and small children's below 16 or 15 just learn that and claim it as a mentalist, and they go and perform. Then people ask, how do you do? And they say it's psychology, micro expressions, body language, and it doesn't make any sense for the public. So how do you see small kids learning these stuffs and doing and claiming it as a mentalist?
Well, I mean, look, they're kids. So, I mean, kids are going to be kids, and, they're going to take some tricks and perform as a mentalist. But really, look, as a mentalist, yes, I use some real psychology, but truly, any mentalist at the core of it, what we're doing is an illusion. Like, we're pretending we're reading minds. So it's no different than a kid pulling some tricks off and saying that they're mentalist. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with everybody doing what they want to do. I mean, as a matter of fact, here in Ireland, I encourage kids and I mentor kids. I've got an 18-year-old now that I've been mentoring for years in Cork. Daniel Kremen is his name. And I help him and assist him, and I help him with some routines. And now he works for me. Now he ends up getting paid to do some things for me. And ultimately, I think any form of learning is good. I think the problem is that secrets are now too accessible. However, with that being said, when I'm working for a high-end company, we'll just say, for example, Google Central Europe, I did a gig for them last week, right? None of those people are, after my show, Googling secrets. Like, they're not. They're too busy. They're high-end professionals. They don't care about how the stuff is done. So I think it's not good. I think it can harm to a certain extent, but I'm fine with kids taking tricks and pretending they're mentalists, because I understand that the way people will really win, especially now with Zoom, is through our personalities. And that's what's been lost in the whole mix. Way back to when I was very young, I understood that everything that I did had to be based upon showmanship, right? So be the best dressed person in the room. So even on a Zoom call this morning, like, I'm dressed in a nice jacket, a nice shirt. I'm not, like, even down here, I'm not in my pajamas. I've got pants on. I'm not, I'm ready to rock it out on Zoom. So everything matters is what I would say. So for kids to pick up tricks and say they're mentalists, I don't care. They're no threat to me, because I'm in a different genre. I'm doing different things. And even my contemporaries, they're doing their own things. So, like, I know now the people who are winning on Zoom and online, truly, Luca Volpa is doing fantastically well behind the scenes. Lear Suchard is doing great. These are my contemporaries. These are people that I look up to. I think they're fantastic at what they do, and they understand how to present. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. For anybody listening to this, yeah, we can all learn tricks, right? We can all learn tricks. But, like, what you have to learn is how to present. Even with Zoom, I see these public performances on Zoom right now by mentalists and magicians, and, like, there's some very good ones out there, but most of them are actually very poor, and then they're putting out tutorials after the fact, right? So they're saying, okay, come here to learn all these Zoom tricks. And they're in their room, and they've got bad backdrops and bad lighting, and then they're trying to explain how they're running a show while their Wi-Fi is dropping off and things are glitching. And I'm like, this is not something I could sell to a corporation. This is not something that I could sell to the public. So for me, the first thing I did was figure out, okay, technically, how can we present the best possible show? So right now, I'm just on my MacBook Pro while I talk to you. But when I'm doing a high-end professional gig, I've got a tech director who comes up. We've got he sits at the end of the desk here. I don't know if I can turn this around. It's a bit messy at the moment, but look, there's some of the equipment over there that we have. So you can see the screens and stuff like that. But we've got, like, webcams. We've got, like, a Canon 360, which is broadcast quality for television. Like, that's what we use. And if you're in that professional arena, that's what you need to use. So I think people need to, if they're in this professionally, they just need to focus on those things and not on the tricks.
I think we should give importance on the technical side in this, especially this online kind of shows, right?
Yeah, and how to present them, what their backdrop is. Sometimes I use this as my backdrop, but, like, it's not a bookcase for the sake of a bookcase. This is actually my creative space. These are the books that I refer to every day. And then I sometimes use some of these as props, and sometimes I put props up there and so on,
Yeah. Okay, all right. And also what you said is true, actually, because learning tricks from YouTube doesn't make a person a great performance. It's all about understanding the art form in a very good way. And also there are many factors. So yeah, that's true though. And also, talking about success, success for each and every person might be different. For example, one person is creating effects and putting it in the industry. For that person, he might be successful. But for the public, maybe they don't know that person, right? So in the eyes of public, if a magician or a mentalist is successful, then he have to appear on numerous number of television shows, and he have to do his own TV special. He have to travel around the world and do stage shows and all, right? So one of the very interesting and tough thing which every beginner magicians or which other professional magicians are actually facing is that how to get started on TV special, how to get involved in a TV special. So how does this thing work? I mean, is it like you have to go to different television and approach them and say that, okay, we have something and I want to appear on a television, or is it like they're approaching you? So how does it get started? Because now I know they're approaching you, right? But how does it begin?
Yeah, but to begin with, nobody approaches you. Even now, yes, people approach me, but more often than not, I approach them. Okay, so, but to begin with, all I can talk about is my own experience. Everybody's experience is different, right? So, but for me, so if I was to advise you now to get a TV show, for example, okay, here's the formula I would follow. So, with all the people listening, all of your listeners and people watching right now, all I ask is that if I give this formula, if somebody follows it and gets a TV show, all I ask is that they email me and say, wow, it worked. I got a TV show. Thanks. I don't want anything else, right? But here's the formula. So 1, you must go out and film a sizzle tape in the era that we're in, right? In the whole visual era that we're in, you have to have a good sizzle tape. The sizzle tape must be not longer than 3 minutes, ideally 2 minutes, but not longer than 3 minutes, because these high-end TV executives will not watch longer than probably a minute of it anyway. So maximum 3 minutes. I see all these promo reels that are like 15 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 5 minutes long, even 5 minutes. Forget it. It's got to be like maximum 3, but probably realistically 2. Now, in that 2 minutes, you've got to tell a quick story arc of exactly what it is that you're going to do on television. So if that's street magic, you've got to just show reactions and people screaming and running away. But if it's a studio show, well, then you've got to hire a studio. You've got to go into a studio and you've got to hire an audience to go into that studio and show what you can do in a studio. That costs money. So the question I ask for you and all your listeners are you willing to go to the bank and take out a loan for 5,000 euros and spend that money on your sizzle tape? If the answer to that is no, you're never going to make it. Forget it. That's my opinion, because that's what I did. I took out a loan for 5,000 euros 20 years ago because I was broke. I had no money, and I hired a crew, 3 guys running around the streets of Dublin, and then we edited it together. We put the music in and all the rest of it, and then I ran off. At the time, it was CDs. I mean, some people even watching this wouldn't even know what a CD is, right? That's what's funny about this. But ultimately, DVDs. But the reason it cost so much money is I ran off 1,000 of them. So I ran off 1,000 of these DVDs, and then I started to send them out everywhere. That's point 2. You can't just go to one place. So here's what I would do now. So luckily now you don't have to run off DVDs, but what you do have to do is just upload it to a private YouTube link once you've got your sizzle tape done, and then you must reach out to as many people in the TV industry as possible. So if that's India, for example, the first thing I would do is like, okay, who's the top kind of mentalists and magicians, and not just mentalists and magicians, entertainers in India? Who are the top TV stars? Who are their agents? Who's representing them? Who are their managers? And I would send out my pack. So my pack being a YouTube sizzle tape, and then also like a presentation, so a pitch deck, as we call it. So your pitch deck, excuse my language, has to be shit hot. So you got to have like a really good editor to put that together. If you put it together yourself, forget it. Unless you're really good at that. Like a lot of people think they're really good at it. They're not really good at it. So you got to pay somebody to put a really good pitch deck together. You got to film yourself, get your sizzle tape together, combine those two, and then send it out to, like, as I said, whoever the top entertainers are, even actors, comedians, magicians, mentalists. Who are their managers? Who are their agents? And then ideally what you want is a production company behind you, because to get into the networks, they really only deal with production companies. So you got to find and partner with a production company. Most production companies will just shut the door. They'll say no, no, no. So you got to go to a lot of them to find one that will partner up with you. And most people don't have that resilience. I do, even now. I no problem with doors being closed. I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. I won't stop. I'll never stop. And that's what wins, is people who've got that level of resilience. And then you got to know what you're doing and how to present in a room to TV executives. TV executives, for the most part, it's opposite to what magicians and mentalists will think. Most magicians and mentalists, even in my genre, even like quite well known, they'll go in and start doing tricks, right, on the TV executives. The TV executives don't want to see tricks. They want to understand and comprehend the TV experience that the viewing public will see. That's all they care about. So for me, I very rarely now do any mentalism pieces or tricks or anything in the room. What I do is charm them. I make sure that they understand that I'm a strong performer on TV, and I talk them through my pitch deck, and I talk them through the sizzle tape so that they have a clear, concise understanding of what the end product will be. So if you follow those steps, then you have a relatively good chance of landing a TV show. And now in the COVID environment, like I'm pitching TV shows at the moment, and I'm doing it virtually. So then that's a whole other thing then, is how to do that virtually. And it's similar, but you have to tweak what you do, and you have to be adaptable. You have to be adaptable to the environment, and you have to understand also the network that you're pitching to. So for example, you mentioned Discovery, and I know a lot of people in India have seen my Discovery Channel show, and it's repeated a lot out there too.
Yeah.
But ultimately with Discovery, they wanted me to explain how some of the tricks were done, but without really explaining them. So I understood that. So I knew that that's what I was pitching to them. But when I'm pitching to whatever, like the CW network, or when I'm pitching to ITV, so ITV Studio, I know that that needs to be clean, crisp, shiny floor, studio format. And that's what I'm selling. So you need to really understand the network that you're going to. If I'm going to MTV, for example, I know it needs to be, I wouldn't wear this, even on the pitch meeting. I'd wear a t-shirt, I'd be all relaxed. I have a big tattoo, I'd show my tattoo, because then they go, oh, he's cool, he's young, and so you have to really understand who you're pitching to, how you're pitching to, and understand what you're selling as well. And they're the key points, I would say, even now, to try and get your own TV show.
That's really a great formula though. Like anyway, we will definitely try this out, and let's see. And if it works, we will mail you.
Try is a fail word. Don't try, just do it. And then you'll get a TV show. But resilience, like, are you willing to work 18 hours a day, sleep very little, see your family very little, and everything else becomes secondary, and sacrifice? Most people aren't. They'll say they are, but then they start falling asleep at 12 a.m. instead of grabbing coffee up till 4 a.m. and then get back up at 9 a.m. So 5 hours sleep, and go again and go again and go, and do that for a prolonged period of time. Like, most people are not willing to do that, whereas I am, even now, 20 years later.
And that's why you're successful, because you are known as the best Irish mentalist in the world, right? And a hypnotist as well. And that's really great though. And also, let me just ask you this. So I don't know how this works. So basically, when you do TV shows, is it like, do you have a team to approach to random strangers, or is it like you are directly approaching them?
Yeah, so it varies depending on what the TV show is. So with a lot of TV shows, you have to get people to sign like a release form. So you've got to get them to sign a release form so that you can use their image. So for example, if I'm filming in Los Angeles, I can't walk up to strangers, because most of them are actually in Hollywood. They're already actors. And so if I go up to you and say, hi, how are you? My name is Keith. We're here with a crew. Invariably, you'll just talk to my agent, because they're actors. They don't want to be on camera. They want to be paid to be on camera. So therefore, in LA, very often, my team will approach people, first, and say, okay, can you sign this release form? Keith Barry's going to do something on you. Here in Ireland, if I'm out and about, I'll just go to people randomly, because nobody cares. Everybody knows me. So it's really easy for me. The hard part here in Ireland is, if I go to one person, all of a sudden, like, we have like 100 people jump down to see what I'm doing. And we might not want that. So it varies on project to project as to whether, my team approach people first, or whether I approach them. I can do it both ways. It doesn't really bother me which way I do it,
That's cool. And also, in order to be a great performer, we need to have a unique personality, right? So what's the best advice that you can give to the beginner magicians to find their own unique personality?
Yeah, well, I think most of the personalities online now are very similar. So it's like, so this is what's happening online right now, right? So it's like, what's up, everybody? My name is Johnny, and I've got a trick for you. Check this out. Watch this, pen. Whoa! Check me out. If you want to learn that trick, just go to this number here. Swipe up now. Wah! And they get the thumbnail. So I understand that, right? But that's what everybody's doing now. So now for me, they're all interchangeable. everybody's interchangeable. So the viewing public don't really care too much, who's who. And ultimately, the perception is that these people are very successful, but actually the reality is, a lot of these people are not getting paid very well. Even people with like 5 million followers, it's hard to turn that into hard cash, right? And I think the problem with that is a lot of young magicians around the world are being influenced by that because they perceive these people as being massively successful because they've got a lot of following. What they don't understand is that's just popularity, right? So me, I'm never in a popularity contest. I always want to stay true to my brand. So I think the first thing that you need to do is not get caught up in that, right? So not get caught up in the woo, and not just copy that. So find out what interests you. So what interests me is motivational and inspiring people. And I try to do that through my channels. So for example, up on YouTube, so if people go to my YouTube channel now, they'll see that my latest videos are based around creative visualization. And then having a lot of fun. I just like to have fun with my mentalism and magic and put some comedy in there. But, it's always true to my personality. But I think people need to actually just examine their personality. So literally sit down, grab a pad of paper, write down your likes, your dislikes, write down what you want to do with your magic and mentalism, and then create a structure with that. If I'm a nerd, for example, and if I like just being technical, right? There's a lot of nerdy people out there that will follow you. You don't have to have this crazy big personality. You just need to be interesting. So if you find an interesting perspective about yourself and play to that, then you can have a genuine following. Like I know people with masses of followings, like, people you would know in our industry, they can't sell 150 tickets to a live gig. Like they can't even sell that many tickets, right? So
but they'll be able to get likes on Instagram or followers, but they can't sell live tickets. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I've far lower of a following than a lot of people, right? So I have 140,000 followers on Facebook and 60,000 on Twitter and whatever it is, 40,000 on Instagram. I do all those, it's fine, but actually I don't rely on those. I don't rely on those for my income. And for me, again, to go back to personality, I think your personality grows over time and changes over time as well. And for me now, I'm a father with 2 kids, so I have to be more careful now about some of the stuff that I used to do years ago. Years ago in Ireland, I became very controversial for a long time. I was putting out some weird, dark material. So I had the dark side, which was based around Aleister Crowley and witchcraft and voodoo. And then the next year I brought out the 8 Deadly Sins, which was based around the 7 Deadly Sins. So of course, all of the religion people were kind of going crazy over that. So I suppose now with kids, I'm a bit more mindful of my controversy. I still get controversy, but I'm more mindful of it. So I think it's, again, going back to what is your hobbies? What is your interests? What do you want to achieve with your magic? And decide on that. And then try not to be too affected by the crazy, noisy world that's around us. And try not to join that tribe, because I think that tribe, they're just becoming a copycat of each other. And it's just, for me, it's just kind of sad, really,
Yeah. And also, let me ask you one more question about your TV magic scene, and then we can move on to your experience in Now You See Me Too. And so basically, when you create or customize your own effects for your TV show, okay. So when you actually plan the structure of the television show, what are the things that you give importance? I mean, is it like this has to be the strong effect, or is it like this has to be visual? What are the things you give importance while structuring the show?
Well, that's interesting, because very often it's driven by the network. That's what people don't understand. So, you look at my TV show or Dynamo's TV show or Darren Brown's or whoever it may be. Very often that narrative is driven by the network. So, for example, here in Ireland, the Keith Barry Experience last year, that was driven by the network. So the network, but it was like, I have a heavy opinion here, so it's good for me. And we came to a common ground, which was they wanted a lot of mentalism, but they also wanted magic as well. And then they wanted a big stunt at the end of every performance. So therefore, that narrative was driven by them. So then when that happens, then I always get a team together, and then we just brainstorm. What do we want to achieve with every effect? So I'll give you an example of the effects in a moment, but like, I might go to my great friend, Andrew Gerard. So Gerard, I've worked with for years and years and years, like a long time now. And we'll come up with some effects together, and then we might bring in some other external consultants like Paul Brook or Kyle Marlette or Tom Elderfield or whoever it may be. And ultimately, we'll just start brainstorming what we want to achieve. So the network here, for example, they wanted celebrities. So I didn't want to do magic for celebrities just because they were celebrities. I wanted to play into whatever their genre is. So for example, we got Ken Doherty, who's the ex-world snooker champion. And I went, okay, well, let's do a trick with a snooker table and get a snooker table into the studio. So then myself and Gerard, specifically the two of us, came up with a great effect using the snooker table. And it wasn't using an invisible deck. Like everybody does a trick with a snooker table and invisible deck. No, it was this crazy, weird effect that we came up with. And then with another performer, Soleil. So Soleil, she's a musician. So I did a trick based upon music. And then we had influencers on, and we had tricks based upon influencers and Instagram and what that means. So we always decide what's the premise first and how does it match that person, and then how can we literally get the best possible reaction out of them using that premise and that presentation. So that's where we start. Okay, because we all know, like, truth be told, David Blaine changed the world of magic when he turned the camera on the audience. So we still know that still works, right? People love to see the reaction. So the end game is what's the reaction, but down here then, what's the premise, what's the presentation, and how can we then get the best possible reaction? But for me now, the premise and presentation has to match the personality that I'm performing for. And even if that's a member of the public, in my mind, I just design things that, what's the location? And what am I doing in that location? What's the presentation that matches the location? And then, so for example, I went to the Sea Sessions Festival, which is a music festival. So then again, I did mentalism that was based around the music at that festival, so that's, for me, is key. And that's how the presentation comes together. And then always I have people that I brainstorm the ideas off of,
That's great though, that's great. And like I said in the beginning, that one of the, the term magic consultant is pretty much familiar in the magic industry, right? Yeah. But this thing, like chief magic and mentalism consultant for a movie, I mean, it's very unique and interesting because there is not like many magic movies are happening. Only yeah. few magic movies are there out in the world, right? In like Prestige, Illusionist, I mean, Now You See Me and all. So only few are there. So how did you get the opportunity to be the chief magic consultant, chief magic and mentalism consultant for Now You See Me?
Yeah, well, this is one of those things that, obviously I do a lot of work in America anyway, and a lot of different opportunities come my way. And I just got a call one day to ask me to pitch for the position. And I actually knew exactly who had been in the room before me pitching for the consultancy role. I knew the names, and there were big names in our community, but I also guessed what they would have done. So for me, I knew that they would have, for example, I knew one of them, when he went in, I knew he would have done a first kiss. So to the executives, right? So think of your first kiss, I'm going to tell you the first kiss, because I know that that's his default trick. That's the trick that he does all the time. So I always think about, what am I going to do differently? So when I went in to the room, I decided not to do any tricks at all. I went in with so they'd give me the script. So I went in with the script and I said, there's 3 spelling mistakes in your script, right? And they thought, well, it's only a rough draft. And I said, yeah, I understand it's a rough draft, but there's 3 spelling mistakes. So in the hypnotic world, that's a pattern interrupt, right? So that means they're a little bit like, who the fuck is this guy to tell us there's a spelling mistakes in our script? But then I want them to know, like deeply know, that my standards were as high as theirs, if not higher. That's what I wanted them to take away from that, right? And then I just gave them free ideas for the script. I didn't do any magic. I just said, here's a great idea for this part of the script. Here's another idea for this part of the script. So I gave them free ideas. And then literally after maybe 20 minutes, they just summed up the meeting and said, okay, he's got the job. Let's get the deal cut and move on. So that's how, and then on specifically on Now You See Me 2, I worked on the script from day zero with Ed Solomon. So when there was no script, just sat down with Ed Solomon and went, okay, what are we doing? And so I worked on the script for the whole year with Ed Solomon. So every day I was talking to him on Skype and sometimes in person when I was flying to Los Angeles and whatnot. And then at the end of the year, they asked me would I go on to set in Longcross Studios in London for all 3 months. So I was there for all 3 months, assisting all the actors with all of the different illusions and whatnot. And it was an amazing experience. But that's how it all happened. And then, you know, a lot of people don't know, I'm actually in number 2. I had a little role in number 2. So when Lizzie Kaplan is producing Doves, she turns to a spectator and says, there's a pigeon in your pants. And the guy unzips his pants and a pigeon comes out. So if you pause it there, you'll see that that's actually me. So I was officially Mr. Pigeon Pants, and Now You See Me Too. So look, it was great fun.
That's so funny.
And that's how it all came about. But, you know, it was long hours again. I mean, it was crazy hours. But, you know, it was an amazing experience to work with, you know, Mark Ruffalo and Woody Harrelson and all of the different actors, you know.
I mean, all are like big names. I mean, Daniel Radcliffe,
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman. Yeah, those are like big names in the industry, right? And also, see, this is like one of the challenging experience for you because they are not like professional magicians and they don't know how to do magic. So training them is like a different ball game, right? And like, what was the most challenging experience you ever had in Now You See Me Too? Like, what was tell us about that.
Well, I think that the challenge wasn't really the actors, right? So the real challenge is trying to bring together the opinions of the executive producers, the opinions of the director, the opinions of the writer, and my opinions, and then all of us come to a common ground where we know what we're filming. Because the actors, you know, have a lot of influence on what happens on screen. And then I suppose the most challenging trick, though, if I was to think of one, now that I think of it, it was the opening scene of Now You See Me 2. Because we wanted to chop off Lizzie Kaplan Lula's head in the opening scenes. We wanted to chop off her head. And myself and Blake Voigt worked really hard on that, on, you know, how we can actually do that. So we tested it. It took a lot of weeks. And you have to understand, like, this is a Hollywood actress. So she's not going to do take after take after take in an uncomfortable position, because she was uncomfortable in the couch with her head up and all that kind of stuff. So we did the first take and it didn't work. Like, the mechanism didn't work at all. And then one of the producers of Lionsgate just turned to me and said, Keith, you've got 2 more takes of this and then we're done. And either it works or it doesn't work. And it's the type of thing that, like, genuinely, I thought we might have to do like 10 or 15 takes to make it work. So now I'm just being told that I've only got 2 more takes. I've got 3 takes total to make it work. And also her acting to be good, right? So they're the issues that I have. And because I'm the chief consultant, it all lands on my shoulders. So I'm like, okay, we got to fix this. Anyway, so we got it in the second take. So in the second take, it all worked. And then he just turned to me and said, cut, we're done, next, move out. You know, so that was the most challenging moment, I think, because I felt the pressure. I felt the pressure a lot that particular day. But a lot of it's actually about managing personalities as well, and making sure that, you know, there's a lot of egos in the room when it comes to movies. There just is. So you have to manage all of those different egos and make sure that, again, everybody comes to that common ground. So I need to make sure the actors are happy with what they're saying, what they're doing. I need to make sure the executive producers are happy with what they're getting on camera. I need to make sure the director is happy with what's being said and the actions. And if not, I have to then tweak that with the director and with the actors. So it's a fine balancing act. And I think that's probably why I was chosen for the role, because, you know, I'm pretty good at managing people when I need to manage people, and I'm pretty good at managing personalities as well, you know, and that everybody's opinion is relevant and everybody has that opinion. They have the right to state their opinion. But then we need to, you know, because you're on, it's costing like a couple of $100,000 a day, you know, every moment matters. So then you got to kick on, you got to be quick and think on your feet, you know.
That's actually, I mean, you have done a huge job and a great job there, I know. And that movie is really dope, though. It's one of the best magic movie, right? It's the best
Yeah,
magic movie out there in the modern world, right? And I heard this thing, interesting thing in the interview, I think on YouTube Space LA, where you explained about then, like you didn't get the chance to meet Morgan Freeman on the Now You See Me first part, and
yeah.
then you said to John about meeting him on the second part, right, while filming, and then you went to see him, and he asked you, like when John introduced you to Morgan Freeman, he said, "Read my mind," like that. Like, how did you manage that situation? It's like, we know that to read mind there is a process. So in
Yeah.
order to get into that process, if that person is defensive, like we are gonna screw it up, right? So how did you manage that situation?
Well, I'll tell you, it was horrible to begin with, because it was actually Woody Harrelson. So it was a scene involving all of the actors. So Woody Harrelson, Morgan Freeman, Lizzie Kaplan, Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Ruffalo,
Dave Franco, okay.
and Dave Franco as well. Yeah. So they were sitting there, and because it was all the actors and Morgan Freeman, it was a very closed set that day. So it was only like two cameramen, the director, and a producer from Lionsgate. So there wasn't many people in the room. Like normally there's like 100 people, right? Whereas this particular day, there was only like a very small amount of people. And so Woody Harrelson, who I'm very friendly with, so Woody said to Morgan Freeman, "Hey Morgan, this is the guy who came up with all the magic and mentalism for the movie, and he can read minds." So that's what Woody said, right? And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then Morgan Freeman, I promise you, this is exactly what he said. "I challenge you to read my mind." And I'm like, oh boy, like Morgan Freeman just challenged me to read his mind. Now, I don't have one here handy, but like ultimately on set, as part of the set, there was a book, right? So I thought, I'll just do a quick book test on him for fun and grab that, right? So I did a book test on him, and he seemed kind of mildly impressed, but not really. So then I thought, okay, I better do better than this. So then I thought, okay, so I said to him, think of a childhood friend of yours who you haven't thought about in like a long time. He said, I got it. I haven't thought about this person. I haven't even thought about this person in 60 years, right? And then I went through a process, and I told him about a childhood friend of his called Boo Boo, B-U-B-U, that he hadn't seen or thought about in 60 years, and that it was his fishing buddy from childhood. That's what I told him. And he lost his mind. Like, honestly, lost his mind. And he's like, what the heck? How the hell? And then the whole way through, so then they went back to filming, and the whole way through his scene, he kept breaking character and he started calling me Barry, because some people do that because it's my surname. And he's like, Barry, can you find dead people? Are you psychic? So I knew I really had him because he believed that I was psychic. But that was an amazing experience because it started off very unnerving. I don't get unnerved easily, but it's Morgan Freeman. So I'm like, but then I pulled it off. And when I told him about that childhood friend Boo Boo, he just lost his mind,
That's so cool. That's so cool. And dealing with those personalities, like whom you felt that it is quite difficult to train them in certain kind of scenes.
You know what? I'm not just saying this. They were all brilliant. These people train day in, day out for their roles. They're actors. So they're used to taking on roles where they have to do very specific things. So, if it was card throwing, they were all brilliant at it. I mean, honestly, Dave Franco could wipe the floor with most magicians out there because his technique is brilliant, but then also he's got a great personality too. And let's face it, he's really good looking. So that helps, right? So he could get his own TV show as a professional magician if he wanted to. But even Lizzie Kaplan, like I had to teach her how to produce doves for her piece. But within 2 hours of being in her trailer, she was able to produce doves efficiently enough for the scene. So they were all really good. I mean, even Woody Harrelson, like if you Google Woody on David Letterman, I taught him a book test. And David Letterman is unkind to magicians. Like, he's not nice to magicians, and he wasn't nice to Woody Harrelson with that book test. But Woody absolutely broke David Letterman's mind because of the book test that I taught him. And if you see Woody doing the book test, you'll understand he does it better, again, than most mentalists out there. So I was very impressed by all of the different actors being able to pick up all of the different things that they needed to pick up,
That's so good. I mean, yeah, but like by seeing that movie, we can understand that they trained and worked so hard for doing
Yeah.
certain kind of moves and all. Especially the card throwing scene where I heard that it took like many weeks to film that, right?
Yeah, well, in total about 2 weeks. Yeah, so 2 weeks from start to finish to film that one, whatever it is, 3-minute scene in the movie, And yes, of course, it was enhanced by CGI. But even if you look at the movie, you can see that like Dave Franco is really throwing the card up, really catching it with his mouth. They were really spinning cards and catching cards in the scene, which, as you know, is not an easy task. So yeah, it was amazing to see them all do that, and we had a lot of fun doing it though as well. Just throwing cards all day long and getting paid for it was brilliant.
Okay, all right. So I clearly know the fact that we are running out of time. I think you have 10 more minutes only, I guess. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me ask you one more thing, and you can little bit take your time and explain that, and then we can end up the session. So what's your future projects about in this field? I mean, so now it's lockdown, and earlier you mentioned about you're now doing a project on virtual shows, virtually doing things. But after this, after all this COVID ends worldwide, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So look, before COVID, I had a load of different projects lined up, which are now all on hold, of course. Let's just say there's rumors about Now You See Me 3. Okay, so I might be involved in Now You See Me 3. And then also I've got to film the Keith Barry Experience #2 here in Ireland. So when COVID opens up, that'll probably be the first project that I will do. Then in the US, there's nothing locked in right now, but in 2022, my idea would be before the end of 2022 to film a new TV series for the US. So they're kind of the major projects, because I work in the US a lot for companies and corporations, but ideally I would get my own TV show there again, which, I've turned down some TV shows out there as well, just for different reasons. I've landed some and I've turned them down. So the idea would be, to film out there, but the ones that I've got locked in are the ones here in Ireland, certainly at the moment. But also, COVID is going to last quite a while. So I'm planning on doing a virtual world tour. So a proper world tour. Yeah. So I'll be coming to India for sure with my virtual world tour. And it'll be happening.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And then, so that'll probably happen actually early next year. So January, February, March, when I would normally tour here in Ireland, I'm probably going to do a virtual world tour.
So for each country, what you're planning, how many participants will be there in each show?
It depends, because I'll probably geo-target it, meaning, I might do, for example, if it's Australia, I'll do one show for Melbourne, one show for Sydney, one show. And the reason, I've got very specific reasons to do that. I'm not going to share why, but I would imagine that it'll be 500 to 1,000 per show. So depending on where it is. So every show will be 500 to 1,000 people. That's what I would imagine. And I've tested.
Incredible.
Yeah, it works great. So that would be kind of the next year or so. I think live entertainment is not going to come back until mid next year. Also, just with what's going on in America, it's difficult for anybody to travel there right now. So we don't know how long that's going to last. So they're kind of the different projects that I have. But right now also I'm just slammed with corporate work. And that's my main, focus right now is both motivational keynotes and corporate work. And then look, I mentioned, here's an interesting thing for some of your people watching and listening, with my different channels. So my YouTube channel, my Instagram channel, all that kind of stuff. So I'm still obviously looking to grow those, even though I don't give them a massive amount of focus. And I'm always looking for ideas and inspiration. So anybody listening to this right now, any magicians who think they might have some interesting content or interesting material that they might want to talk to me about, get in touch. So the best way to get in touch is through info@keithbarry.com, which is where you've been liaising with Mairead, who's my wife, but also my executive assistant. But yes, just shoot us an email, because I always have tons of projects on the go. And as I mentioned, I always use consultants and ideas, and they always get paid for their ideas. So if anybody listening has any ideas for any of the social channels specifically, I'd love to hear them, and they'll get paid for their ideas.
So let me ask you something. Are you a fan of technology-based magic and mentalism?
When you say, well, see, technology now, that can mean a few different things. So technology-based is obviously working through Zoom, but are you talking about the apps that are out there, or what do you mean by technology-based?
Yeah, like if you're a fan of, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like an app-based magic and mentalism effect. So if you're a fan of that, if you like that, after this meeting, I will share something with you. Okay.
Yeah, I have all of them, and I use some of them. This
is something which is not yet released, but
right.
like my friend is the creator of that, and this is the holy grail. Like I will tell about that after this meeting. Yeah.
All right, let's keep it a secret for us then.
Yeah. So like one more thing, then we can enter the session. So I heard that you are actually writing an ebook, right?
It's written. Yeah, done.
It's done, and you published it also.
Yeah, yes, no. So it's an ebook that I wrote during COVID, and it's specifically about how to reprogram your subconscious mind to achieve peak performance. So it's for the general public, and it's about mind motivation. It's about the fact that neuroplasticity is a real science, and that we're the sum of what we absorb and what we see and what we hear, and how you can take control of your subconscious mind. And it's about dedication. So I talk about all of the strategies that I follow for both my magic and mentalism purpose and also my business purpose. So if people want the ebook, it's completely free, no catches, no click funnels. I'm not trying to sell anything. It's just keithbarry.com/ebook, and you'll get it sent straight to you. So keithbarry.com/ebook, and that's my mind magic ebook, completely free.
So I will do one thing. I will actually give your YouTube channel description and the link to your ebook, and also your Instagram link and Facebook link in the description. So guys, go and check him out. I mean, he's just brilliant. So once again, Keith, thank you so much for giving your valuable time with us. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you on our channel for this interview. I really love the session. Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thanks.